Coming up on iOS today, iOS 17, it's actually here. And if you haven't downloaded it, you should go and get it so that you could be prepared for this episode where we're going to talk about all the fun features, well, many of the fun features of iOS 17. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today with Mikah Sargent and special guest Dan Moren, episode 671, recorded Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. New features in iOS 17. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Milio. Milio Photos is a smart and powerful system that lets you easily organize, edit, and manage years of important documents, photos, and videos in an offline library hosted on any device, and it's free. Visit milio.com/twit. And by our friends, IT Pro TV, now ACI Learning. IT skills are outdated in about 18 months. Launch or advance your career today with quality, affordable, entertaining training. Individuals use code TWIT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership at go.acilearning.com/twit. And by Cashfly, delivering content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. Join Cashfly, the world's fastest CDN. For a limited time, Cashfly is offering a free 5 terabyte tier plan. For other plans, learn how to get your first month free at cashfly.com. Welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, iPadOS, HomePodOS, WatchOS, tvOS, OS, you get the idea. We love to talk about Apple's devices on this show and the software that runs on those very devices. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent, and I am joined this week not by Rosemary Orchard, but by a wonderful special guest. It's Dan Moren. Welcome back to the show, Dan.
Thank you for having me. As always, Mikah, I love to talk about SOS, iOS, MOS, what one of the OSs. I love to talk about it.
SOS. Yes, this is iOS 17. Apple released iOS 17 yesterday as we record this show on Tuesday. So on Monday, Apple released the new version of iOS, along with several other new operating systems, basically everything save for macOS, which will be coming soon. And so many of you may have already done the update. If you haven't, now's the opportunity to do so. And I thought I'd talk about some of the features that I've actually been using or have kind of checked out or am excited to try because it requires other people having it come iOS 17 now that it's here. So one of the first features that Apple announced on stage at WWDC, I was lucky enough to get to be there for the event, and they started the show by talking about a new feature called contact posters. And contact posters are a way for you to kind of customize the way that not only you appear on someone else's phone when you call them or text them or FaceTime them, but also how others appear on your device when they do the same. And the way that it works is you set up your own contact poster. And then you get to choose if you want to set up a contact poster for someone else and have the one that you chose be the default, or you can let the one that they chose be the default when they reach out and talk to you. So if you've been using iOS for quite a while, you're familiar with a mechanism of contact posters by way of the Messages app. For quite a while now, we've been able to set a photo and name for ourselves in the Messages app. And then there is a setting that you can choose to kind of share that information when you start talking to a person. And then they'll get a little tab that pops up in their messages that says, do you want to update the photo and the name of the person that is getting in touch with you? And so it was a way for you to kind of give your photo, maybe one that you would like to have, as opposed to one that maybe they have put in there, to that other person. and to kind of keep things in line between the two of you. So I actually really like this feature and have set up contact posters for the people that I talk to the most. I'm curious, Dan, if you've had the opportunity to play around with it, or if you've ever even been interested in playing around with this.
Yeah, I think what I like the best about this is that it really distributes a mental workload, which is for years I've had all these people in my contacts and I'm like, I should really put pictures on all of them. And like, that way I don't have just those weird, monogram initials when I'm texting with somebody. And but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go through and carefully curate all my pictures for the 100 contacts I have or what have you. I'm sure there are people who have way more than that. So the idea that everybody can make their own poster and then it just gets sent to you is to me a huge time saver. And it really enhances my use of the device because I get to see that when they call me. I don't end up with just like a little black screen with a name on it. So for me, I think that's my favorite detail is I've set up one for myself. I set up one the other day for my mom because I was playing around with different styles and stuff like that. But the idea that a lot of people I know might set this up for themselves and then I won't have to do anything is to me the best part of it. Anything that takes work off me is what I'm saying is great.
I'm with you there. And I don't know. I also have just had fun kind of looking through the suggestions that Apple has provided or that iOS has provided for different folks. And it kind of brings up old photos that I might have of some of my friends. I think for you, your contact photo ends up being or contact poster ends up being from when you and I recorded clockwise in the Apple Podcasts studio at WWDC, which was pretty exciting. But there are some kind of action shots of us walking into the studio. And so it was able to capture one of those and add some depth to it, which was fun. I recommend everybody check out contact posters. Rosemary and I covered how to set up contact posters in an early episode as we kind of talked about the features that Apple announced at WWDC. So you can go back and check that out more in depth. Another feature that has been kind of fun, I haven't used these a whole lot because they do require other people to also have iOS 17 in order to properly display them. But Apple has improved on stickers. And so in iOS 17, stickers can be custom created. So you can make your own stickers out of photos, which you've technically been able to do in the past, but they've improved upon the experience where now when you create a sticker, you can add some special effects to it to kind of give it an outline as if you kind of cut it out of a piece of paper, a comic style. You can add it so that it's kind of got a holographic look to it. And the sticker animation kind of moves as you move your phone around as if light was shining on the top of it. And then also one of my favorites, which is puffy, to make like a puffy sticker. And I have to think of a dear friend of mine, former co-host or panelist on MacBreak Weekly, Lori Gill. She and I used to work together at iMore, and she now works at Apple. And I know for a fact that she is a sticker collector. And so anytime I would get something in the mail from her, it would always have some fun stickers on it. And so thinking of her being able to do these puffy and holographic stickers is really, they call it shiny in the app, is really fun. And now stickers are able to be used in more places because it is in the emoji keyboard. So anywhere you have access to emoji, you are able to access those stickers and potentially use them. There are some third-party apps from the App Store that can go ahead and have stickers added to it. An example of that would be Snapchat, where you are able to gain access to your stickers and post them there. So any stickers you create in different apps, you are in the stickers section, you might now be able to use those across the whole suite of tools. There are also animated stickers, which I have found fun. There are just so many photos of my dogs doing silly things as stickers, and they were easy to set up. Apple kind of recommends some different stickers to you. And if we can show, Kevin, there's a Well, now I've lost it. Oh, there's an animation under create one of a kind stickers, and it shows how there's a photo of a cat, and they simply tap and hold on the photo of the cat, and there's a new context menu that says add sticker. So you can go into your photos and find stickers that you think are delightful and add them. And in fact, I just got a sticker from Dan from what event was that? Was that
WWDC last year, not this year.
That's right. So I unfortunately can't show it on the screen right now, but it is a photo of Dan and Dan and me taking a picture at WWDC, and it's animated, which is fun. So yeah, I've been eager for people that I talk to regularly to get on iOS 17 so that they can try this out. I think for me, the novel will probably wear off pretty quickly. The novelty will probably wear off pretty quickly. Novels never wear out. That's right. But I'm curious, have you played around with this much?
A little bit. I think it's tricky for me because I trying to find things that I could make. I don't have any photogenic pets. I do have a photogenic child, but making stickers out of him has proved to be tricky because he doesn't always sit still. I mean, which is great for animation, but it also ends up with some really awkward ones where it's like him like looking around or doing something strange. So I haven't ended up making a lot of them. I do like the effects though. I think that's the kind of not just the puffy one. The one that I liked is the I don't remember what they call it. It's basically a lenticular sticker, the holographic ones where you
they call that shiny.
Yeah, shiny. Okay, and so it has. But if you turn your phone, it adds that effect of like perspective change because it just reminds me of the I first saw those in like baseball cards when I was a kid, and it would show like the action shot. You would like turn it back and forth and be like the pitcher throwing a ball. But adding that as a feature or like a little effect on there, I think is pretty cool. So I mean, I agree with you. I think it's largely a novelty, but unfortunately, I'm sure people hopefully will get some fun out of it at least.
Apple did something interesting this year, which is they have published in PDF form all of the new features that are in iOS 17 and the other operating systems. And usually it's just a web page that you go to. This time, not only is it just that it's a PDF, but it's also all just text. So it doesn't have any extra fun graphics. However, I did find this a nice way to kind of make sure I was covering the suite of tools. And so what I found interesting is some of the kind of the way they repeat things. So one example, underneath phone, one of the new key features and enhancements, it says it says separate ringtones for dual SIM. It says set different ringtones for each SIM when using dual SIM. So for folks who are going, what is that? If you have more than one SIM card installed on your phone, meaning that you can place and take calls at two different numbers, you can set up a ringtone that works for one phone number and a ringtone that works for the other. So if you have like maybe a work SIM and a personal SIM, or your day phone and your night phone, then you can set up different ringtones for that. But then the next setting says, or the next enhancement in here says dual SIM improvements. And here's the text under that. If you use dual SIM, you can set different ringtones per SIM and choose either SIM card to return a phone call from an unknown caller. So we just heard about how you can set different ringtones for each SIM. So it's a little bit reminding me of maybe college papers that need to meet a certain...
Did they improve the margins? Did they make the margins really big and the text really big?
Size 14 text here. But no, ultimately though, I kind of like this because it gets the flashy stuff out of the way and I can just kind of go through and see if there was anything that I missed. A PDF is a little strange instead of just doing a web page, but
weird.
Maybe the telemetry shows that people print that page out or something a lot. And I don't know why they're doing a PDF this year, but
very weird. I was sad because at WWDC, this came out fairly recently. And I was sad because at WWDC, when I was trying to write stuff up about new features, the web page wasn't there.
Yeah,
I did ask about it at the time.
Me too. I didn't hear anything.
I didn't hear anything either. But I guess maybe enough people asked about it that they decided they should put something up, and it's easier to make a PDF than it is to make a web page.
That's true. That's a good point. I can make a PDF but I'm not so great at making a web page. So, someone was like, okay, we'll gather it all and then they will stop asking us. Funny enough, I did not hear that there were now PDFs available. So, I see them in everything except for, I see it in everything except for WatchOS. I'm not seeing a PDF.
Is there a tvOS one or no?
Oh, that's a good. Oh,
yeah,
poor
I think
tvOS.
I think it's iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Those I saw. Yeah.
Yep. That is. Wow. I can't even get the link to tvOS. There we go. Nice. Poor tvOS.
There's very little in tvOS. There's a few things. Yeah.
I think, once you're able to kind of cover it from iOS's perspective, then it's not as front of mind. Anyway, so the PDFs are available if you want to really nerd out and kind of make sure you've got all of the features figured out. But next feature worth talking about is StandBy. And StandBy is quickly becoming a hit for me. It is a new feature that lets you sort of set up an ambient display on your iPhone while your phone is charging. So I have next to my bed a Belkin MagSafe charger, and it has a spot for my Apple Watch, a spot for my phone, and then below it is a little divot, a little crater that you put the AirPods Pro with wireless charging into. And so all three of those devices can charge overnight if I want them to. But what I do is I take my iPhone and I thwack it to the MagSafe charger on this on this charger, and I turn it to the side. And when your phone is in landscape mode and it's charging, StandBy activates. With StandBy, you get these beautiful, nearly full screen widgets that will display all sorts of information. As more apps are coming out with updates, they too are getting support for StandBy. And so you can kind of choose which apps you want to have in StandBy mode and what features you want to show. But even the base features I've found to be quite nice. I've got on mine a clock on the left side and the calendar, the actual days of the calendar, so the full month on the right. And then it is set so that it can automatically update if depending on the time of day, it might suggest a photo to show or something else. You can also talk to Siri while it's on the standby mode, and it will display results for you there. And also live activities can pop up. So if you order from something that supports live activities, for example, Uber Eats, it can show you the state of your order. Or if I wanted to say the one the live activity that I use that I think is super handy, which is flying and having the plane information. But if your phone is on standby, and you're looking at your flight information, you might be late for your flight. So I don't know if that's super handy in standby mode. But there are a bunch of different kind of design options. You can choose to have a full photo in the background with the clock with the little clock on the side. I will say, I don't like to do the photos mode because the photos mode requires, in my current state, it requires the phone to be unlocked. And so it kind of is not as good looking whenever the phone is locked. And there are a bunch of different modes. And last but not least, I'll mention that a feature that I do enjoy is that it uses the ambient light sensor in the phone to determine how bright the room is. And if the lights are off in the room, it shifts everything to a deep red. And given so when it comes to light, red light waves are very long and are in a way less energetic than other colors of light. And so that just means that they don't, the best way to put it is they don't kind of travel into your retinas and disturb your sleep as much. And they also don't light up everything in the room, unlike shorter, more energetic
Right,
light.
It doesn't mess with your night vision. That's why
Correct.
dark rooms are
That's the best way to put it. That's a much simpler way to put it. It doesn't mess with your night vision. So that is why it turns red. I really like this feature. I've been using it every night as long as the beta has been out. And I also think that folks are kind of interested in it from the perspective of how it could be a hint at future features from Apple and future maybe even product lines from Apple. But let's hear your thoughts on this one, Dan.
Yeah, I really like StandBy. I've been using it a bunch in my kitchen where I have a little MagSafe kickstand, and it's really handy for certain types of things, especially it works with live activities. And so using timers with it is a great example because you can actually visibly see your timer progressing. So instead of having to ask your virtual assistant all the time, how much time is left on my timer, you can just look down at StandBy. I think it really, to get the most out of it, it really does require the always on display in the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro. Doesn't require. You can use the feature without it, but it is definitely better with the always on display because it doesn't go to sleep. And that way you can always glance over and see it. Whereas with the other displays, you might have to tap it. I like the widget view. I think that for me is the winner. I've played around a little bit more with the alarm clock view on my nightstand, which isn't bad. I like the ability, as you mentioned, with the motion sensor, because I can kind of just wave my hand in front of it at night and like glance at my clock rather than having to like find my watch. I am really intrigued to see what other widgets show up for it. There are, more third-party stuff coming now. And I wish that it did it does save certain stuff based on location, but from what I can tell, it's mainly saving whether you're looking at there's sort of the alarm clock view, the widget view, and the photos view. Mm-hmm. And I think the location stuff is mainly tied to which of those three views. So it knows, for example, I use the alarm clock on my nightstand. I use the widget view in the kitchen, but it doesn't necessarily know which widgets. It doesn't you can't like have it in different locations and say, I want these widgets here and I want these widgets over here, from what I can tell anyways. So I wish it had that because I like to like keep the same widgets when I'm in certain places.
I agree.
But I really do appreciate the amount of stuff that's already in there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what else developers come up with, because you were showing off the audio playback mode too, which is something that I really like. It has a kind of a CarPlay vibe to it almost, where it's like, oh, big easy buttons to see, and it's easy to see what's playing back. And I really appreciate that when I'm listening to a podcast, say while I'm cooking dinner. I really like StandBy. The only thing is, you mentioned like hinting at future product categories. For me, it makes me want a HomePod with a screen that much more, because now I've seen what the interface can be like. It's like, I don't want to type my phone. I just want a device that's always there with the display always on it. So
it might make me use Siri more, which is something that I would not expect. So
You've done too good a job, Apple, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they really nailed it with StandBy. I think this was one of the highlights of the event for me whenever they first announced this feature, and kudos to the team that made this possible. All right, let us take a quick break before we come back with some more iOS 17 features you just gotta check out. We will talk about that in just a moment. I'm joined this week by Dan Moren of 6colors.com and, of course, the Clockwise podcast. All right. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Milio and Milio Photos, which is a smart and powerful system that is key in keeping all of your digital assets organized and secure. It's completely offline, so that means I can also create new backup systems and know that my photos and other digital assets are completely protected. Milio Photos is the solution to optimizing and preserving your digital legacy, and you can get it for free. I've mentioned this before. I was skeptical when we first heard about Milio Photos because I knew that for my listeners, you all have iCloud and iCloud Photo Backup, and some of you have Google Photos as a backup system. I use that. I've used Amazon Photos as a backup. We've got all these different backup systems, right? So I thought, how can I say that this is something different from those? And I spoke with the folks at Milio Photos, or at Milio, and oh my goodness, it is absolutely a whole separate thing. It is wonderful, and it's kind of wild how great this works. So with Milio Photos, you can have a completely cloud-free, essentially, backup system. You are the owner of your backup system. And what I love about it is it integrates with all of the places that you would store photos. So that means, you've been posting, you may have been, I have been posting photos to Instagram for quite a while. And that is where my Instagram photos exist, on Instagram, right? Well, with Milio Photos, I can make sure I've got my whole library of Instagram photos. I can make sure that all of my iCloud photos are backed up, that all of my Google photos everything is backed up, and then it can be stored locally on a hard drive, and I can reference that hard drive and be able to access that content on whatever phone or iPad or tablet or whatever it happens to be. It's really quite incredible. With the Milio Photos app, you can easily organize, edit, and manage years of important photos, videos, even documents in an offline library hosted on any device. And since Milio Photos works with your device's filing systems, you don't need to spend time importing. It's simply a faster and smarter way to organize. With the power of AI, smart tags instantly make all of your photos searchable. There's no more endless scrolling through images. Whether you're looking for specific objects, activities, animals, plants, colors, and more, smart tags in Milio Photos has you covered. One of the reasons why I think this is so great is we get a question like this a lot on the show. How do I go through and sort out the photos I don't want? You can use Milio Photos, which is doing on-device tagging of photos. It's not using something in the cloud. The AI is on your device. You can say, I want photos where people are not smiling. I want photos where people are not smiling and their eyes are closed. And so you can really go through your entire library, find all those photos that are just not worth keeping and get rid of them. I can tell you I've got plenty of photos in my library not worth keeping that I was able to find and go, okay, I don't know why I've had that photo on my phone for 9 years when I would never put that photo in a frame or print it out or anything like that. With Milio, I don't have to fumble through several libraries just to find what I want. Milio Photos has everything consolidated so I can remove any duplicate files and keep everything updated. And you can even find older documents that you thought were lost, update them right through the Milio Photos app while keeping the original intact. And with the Milio Photos Plus subscription, all my devices connect in one library without cloud storage required. With offline storage, I don't need to rely on the cloud to keep files accessible through devices, but I can also create new backup systems and know they're secure. And I love that they have been smart enough to do a syncing and storage system where you will have optimized photos on some of your devices instead of the full quality photos where your main backup is storing that full quality photo, just like many of the photo storage solutions that we have right now works. They have that all down as well. Don't wait. Preserve your digital legacy today. Get Milio Photos for free today on your, there's no reason not to. It's free. You should absolutely try this out. There's no reason not to. On your computer or mobile device by going to our special URL. And please, I know you all are very wise, very clever individuals who probably have already typed in Milio and done a search, but I'm asking you to please go to milio.com/twit. When you go there, you'll get the link. And then when you go from there, that lets them know, oh, they heard about it from the show. If you go and search it yourself, they won't know that you heard about it here, and then we don't get the credit for that. And that's kind of the whole thing. We want to let them know that we are telling folks about this, that you all are excited about it, as excited as I am about it. So head to mylio.com/TWIT, twit, and download Milio Photos for free right now. Again, milio.com/twit. And our thanks to Milio for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, we are back from the break, and that means it's time to continue our talk about wonderful iOS 17 features that you should be trying out if you have downloaded iOS 17. The operating system is now available for folks who have devices that support it to download and check it out. And you may be going, okay, so what actually is new about this? One of my favorite new features, aside from StandBy, is or are interactive widgets. Up to this point, widgets on your phone have been able to kind of have one interaction. And so developers kind of wisely figured out that they could put little buttons on their widgets, right? And give the impression that you're pressing a button to do a thing. But what was essentially happening is it was just a simple link. So if I tap on a widget, then it links to this part of the app. So Fantastical, for example, I could set what happened if I hit the plus button on the widget, which was to create a new event, but you could have set it to create a new task, but it was just the one option. Now, with the improvements to the screens, improvements to battery life, improvements to performance, they're able to make widgets more interactive while maintaining the battery life that they want to have for our phones. And so you can actually do more with widgets. And one place that I just mentioned how I don't really use Siri. What I used to do is when I would walk into my bedroom and it was dark, I would I would unlock my phone, and then I would go into the home app, and then I would tap on the scene that turned on the lights in like night light mode. And I, over time, added a scene that would do that I added to my favorites so that I could actually access it from Control Center. But Control Center sometimes moves things around based on what your recent taps are. So it was always just difficult for me to gain access to that. And I would end up, like, by the time I was all the way through my phone, I was already over by the little remote that turns on the lights for the two lights in the bedroom. So I would just use that instead. Now, all I do is hold up my phone, swipe right, so it brings up the screen to the left, which has my widgets, and one set of widgets are home widgets. Now I've got the buttons right there. Before, you couldn't control multiple accessories by way of a widget because that was not available as a feature. Now you can do so much with widgets, and developers have really rushed to set up widgets. We've seen task management widgets that have multiple options to set your tasks as completed. As I mentioned, home control widgets. All sorts of stuff. Have you used any of the interactive widgets that were kind of built in, and are you looking forward to any from third-party developers?
Yeah, I've used a couple of the built-in ones. I like the reminders widget because it lets you finally check stuff off while you're just viewing your home screen, which is really handy if I'm at, say, the grocery store and I've got my grocery list. I don't have to open the old reminders app. Like you, I like the smart home widget for the home app because it really simplifies the ability to control those things. You don't have to go rooting around for all your different home icons and stuff like that. Beyond that, I haven't used as many of the interactive widgets built in, but I've started using more of the third-party widgets as well. Nice. Our pal James Thompson makes an app called Dice by PCalc, which has lets you roll virtual dice, and now you can do that right in a widget on the screen, which is pretty cool. So you do that right from the home screen. And then an app I like for does like white noise ambient sound stuff called Dark Noise. Has interactive widgets now that let you play certain sounds. Like they have like a almost a little soundboard widget. So you can choose which of the many sounds, including the app, you want quick access to right from your home screen. And those are really nice. So I've been a big fan of those because they add a lot of functionality that simplifies things where it's like, you've got one thing I want to do. I don't want to have to go digging through the app to find like this thing I need to do. I don't want to go through 4 different screens. I just want to hit a button and have this thing work. So for me, that's a big help.
Yeah, there's an app called Clang, and it is a soundboard app that is kind of specifically for, sounds. And I ended up installing that, and it's I may or may not have used that to troll some people, lovingly troll some people. That was a fun kind of example of the new widget system. But I don't know about you. Anytime a new iOS comes out, I have so much fun going into the App Store and refreshing that updates page, and it's that music's as I'm going through and just updating all of these apps, and then finding new things that I can add to my widgets screen. And yes, there are so many apps that are adding support for interactive widgets that when I scroll through my list, it's just apps on apps on apps on apps on apps. And that's because I think it is it's delightful to not have to do multiple gestures and taps and whatnot to get to where I want to get. I know one example of this is going to be my app Do, which is my kind of task management app, being able to mark reminders as done and see upcoming reminders from the lock screen or the home screen without having to launch into Do is great. And then also a former sponsor of the show, 8 Sleep, being able to turn on or off the Pod Pro cover so that it is, cooling or heating or disable or turning off the alarm or what have you without having to launch into the app is also quite delightful. So interactive widgets, I think, are so exciting. I kind of wish that they were. I wish that the iPad lock screen was different.
Mm-hmm.
iPadOS's lock screen, it's sort of shuffled off to the side. It's not as I don't know, all encompassing, I guess. What are your thoughts?
I find I don't use the lock screen as much on the iPad. I think that's part of it, is that oftentimes, when you got your phone out and about, it might be on the table with you, or you might pull out your pocket and not want to unlock it. When I'm going to the iPad, like I'm sitting down somewhere, usually for me anyways, like I'm using it in a very stationary, static position. So I'm often just zipping right through that lock screen, and you can bring it down, you can slide down from the top, and it gets all your widgets as well as your nice new, pictures that you've added there. But I agree. I think it feels a little bit more like an afterthought. I think there's much greater power on the iPad in the widgets on your home screen, honestly, than the ones that go on the lock screen, because on the home screen, they can go anywhere. You can have a giant screen that's nothing but widgets. And now with interactive widgets, you can have this whole like control center, not to be confused with control center, that like lets you access all these different types of information, oftentimes without even having to launch an app. That's pretty cool. I mean, it really opens up iPads as secondary displays. I think in a lot of cases, if there's something you want to use and control on there, you can have it's kind of like almost like a little version of multitasking, right? If you can have all these different widgets up that are all interactive on your screen and just sort of tapping them as you go, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. The next feature is all you, because I use a different system for managing passwords. But I know because I remember you talking about it, you were excited to hear that password sharing is coming to iOS. Have you already set that up? Have you been like, partner, please immediately turn this on, get the update? Oh my
God, I so badly want to, but my wife uses, she has an iPhone 8 right now. It can't run iOS 17. No. She's probably upgrading her phone.
Frustrating.
She's probably upgrading her phone this week. But it has been handy in other cases where I have people that I collaborate with on projects and we share a bunch of passwords. So, for example, you and I do a podcast together and we have social media accounts for that podcast. And previously, we would have to text each other passwords and it's like, oh, I had to change the password. Then I have to type Mikah this weird string of letters and numbers and characters and make sure that he got to save it in his own password thing. So now the idea that we can just share it as a password group. And I love the way that Apple implemented this, because you have basically as many groups as you need. You can share any number of passwords with people in those groups. It's fine. I got 3 passwords to share with Mikah, and I've got 2 passwords to share with my mom and half a dozen passwords to share with my wife. Doesn't matter. I can create different groups for all these people and easily just sort of set that up to share with them. So I'm a real big fan of the implementation. And not only does it allow for, obviously doing passwords and 2-factor codes and stuff like that, but it works for the passkeys feature that we're seeing increasingly roll out as well. So previously, the only way to share a passkey with someone was you could airdrop it to them if you were right next to them. But if then you changed your passkey later, they're out of luck. If they were, if say you shared it with somebody who was across the country, there was no way for you to get new passkey information that person. But now you just sync it, and if one person changes it, changes for everybody in the group. So it's simple, it's very straightforward, and it's got an elegance to it, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I agree about it. Having an elegance to it, and they've considered a lot of the different ways that this could go wrong and tried to address that before it happens. So kudos and props to the team in particular for doing their best to nail something that I can there are so many ways it can go wrong, and figuring that out is no small thing. the other feature that I wanted to talk about, and you and I think have joked about how we needed other people to get this so we could try it, is SharePlay in the car. So with SharePlay in the car, if you have CarPlay and you are playing music through Apple Music, you can have other people in the car kind of join the session of Apple Music playback and add to the music that's playing. So no more of the what I do now, where it's like, hey, can I play a song that we're listening to? And then my partner has to turn their face, and I scan their face on their phone, and then they quickly look back to the road, and then I'm able to add a song. No, we don't have to do that now. Now I can use my own phone to connect, or vice versa. They can use their own phone to connect and add music to the playlist. And I think that's very exciting. Something that's coming later this year also is a shared playlists feature, where outside of CarPlay or anything, basically in Apple Music, you can create a playlist and then invite other people to edit that playlist with you. And so you can all kind of create a group playlist together. I love this idea. I've got a game night thing that I regularly attend, and having everybody be able to add to the playlist and kind of update the music. And that way the music that's playing in the background while we're playing different board games and stuff is music that everybody wants to listen to. I'm excited about that. So this, of course, is also another way to shift people over into using Apple Music if they're using other things. So that's always something to be mindful of. But have you now had the opportunity to use SharePlay in the car?
I haven't yet. It's same reason as the previous one. My wife's phone is to run iOS 17. There's one thing I really want from this, which I don't think is included in it, which is this is specifically a feature designed, it looks like, for Apple Music, which is great. But there are also other audio experiences I would like to be able to use this with. So, for example, my wife and I often listen to podcasts on road trips, and I don't think the SharePlay feature covers podcasts, the podcast app, even Apple's own. And that's, to me, is a bit of a bummer if so. And obviously there are a ton of other apps where you can get audio from, whether it's a third-party podcast app or some other type of thing, audio books or what have you. It would certainly be nice if there was more ways to do that and say like, oh, let me add this podcast to our queue so that it gets queued up next while we're on our 6-hour road trip or whatever. So that's something I'm really hoping that maybe Apple implements next year if this really does well. But I certainly appreciate, for the exact reasons you described, that somebody else can have access to these sessions instead of having to do some weird gymnastics with pointing phones at people's faces or constantly unplugging phones. Oh no, I lost my directions. Quick, put in the directions while you swap over to your phone. And yeah, all of that's very annoying. And it seems like this is a problem that's easily solvable.
Yeah. I mean, that's the SharePlay is this magnificent framework for all sorts of shared interactions across all sorts of apps. So one would think that other audio experiences, as we're calling them, would be able to support this SharePlay experience in the car. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that happen, because something I have not been mentioning, but is very much the case, is that my partner is a Spotify user primarily. So, it doesn't quite work. It's a split house.
So challenging. It's so challenging to navigate those situations.
Indeed. All righty. I think we will take another quick break before we come back with the news, with feedback and questions, our app caps, and so much more. I want to take a second to thank a huge sponsor of the network, of Twit in general, of this show, iOS Today. Without them, we would not be bringing you this episode of iOS Today. It's our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. Our listeners know the name IT Pro TV as one of our trusted sponsors for the last decade. As part of ACI Learning, IT Pro TV, which is now IT Pro, has elevated their highly entertaining, bingeable short format content with more than 70 to 100 hours to choose from, and new episodes added daily. ACI Learning's personal account managers will be with you every step of the way. You can fortify your expertise with access to self-paced IT training videos, interactive practice labs, and certification practice tests. One user shares, quote, excellent resource, not just for theory, but labs incorporated within the subscription. It's fantastic. Highly recommend the resource and top class instructors. Oh, and by the way, don't miss ACI Learning's practice labs, where you can test and experiment before deploying new apps or updates without compromising your live system. And MSPs absolutely love it. You can retake practice IT certification tests so you're confident when you sit for the actual exam. ACI Learning brings you IT practice exam questions from Microsoft, CompTIA, EC Council, PMI, and many more. You can access every vendor and skill you need to advance your IT career in one place. ACI Learning is the only official video training for CompTIA. You can also check out their Microsoft IT training, Cisco training, Linux training, Apple training, security, cloud, and more. Plus, join ACI Learning September 26th through the 27th in London at the International Cybersecurity and Cloud Expo to experience the latest innovations and cutting-edge technologies. Learn IT, pass your certs, and get your dream job. Or if you're ready to bring your group along, head over to our special link and fill out the form for your team. Twit listeners receive at least 20% off an IT Pro Enterprise solution and can reach up to 65% for volume discounts, depending on the number of seats you need. Learn more about ACI Learning's premium training options across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness at go.acilearning.com/twit. For individuals, use code TWIT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership. That's go.acilearning.com/twit. And we thank ACI Learning for helping us continue to bring you these shows. We do appreciate you. All right, folks, there are loads of features in iOS 17. You can check out the PDF if you want to read every single one of them. You can also check out Rosemary and my early episode that covered the announcements of iOS 17 following the event. But Dan and I kind of wanted to talk today about some of the features that are just quick to grok, easy to find, and fun to play around with. And some of the features that we've actually been able to use in some cases and are excited about. So with that, I think it's time that we move on to the news. I wanted to mention that many an iPhone review has hit the airwaves or the web waves, as it were. The ocean waves, technically, because we're all connected over lines that run through the ocean. So,
sure, yeah,
the ocean waves, and of course, The Verge is one place where there is a new iPhone review talking about not just but talking about the non-Pro iPhones, the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, and how these phones kind of, in terms of doing an upgrade from a 14 to this model, not going to be much of a step. But in terms of getting the latest, greatest look and feel of iPhone, certainly a great change. Overall, it seems like the reviews are somewhat similar in the sense that, as always, the phones are performant, and they are the people love that they have USB-C charging, which is kind of somebody who reviews a lot of phones is going to point to that for sure. And then I think a consistent concern for, I would say, non-Apple blogs, or rather sites that cover lots of different devices, you hear over and over again about how it doesn't have high refresh rate. And that's not something that, I'm concerned about personally, but certainly for someone who's, very into the stats of their phone and the specs of their phone might want. And then the fact that, we're all the way on the 15 and the non-pros still don't have an always on display. So some of these other features that are handy, you might not be able to use. I was not sold on the always on display at first, but once Apple gave you the ability to turn off the wallpaper for the always on display so that it could just be a black background. That's when it sold me, because up to that point, I was always hitting this side button thinking that my phone wasn't locked. Even though it dimmed it and did all the stuff, I still thought that it was unlocked. Now with the wallpaper off, I know the difference between it being locked and being unlocked with the always on. And I love the always on display. Being able to see the time, the date, and my little widgets that I have is great. But yeah, do we know, can you tell us, is 6colors doing reviews of the new iPhones, or is that something you're even able to say?
I'm sure there will be reviews of the new iPhones on 6colors at some point. I can't speak to when. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. I've seen a bunch in the past couple of days. I've seen some of the sort of consensus about some of these aspects of it. Especially people talking about the colors on the iPhone 15 and on the 15 Pro to a lesser extent. I mean, we knew the 15 Pro colors were going to be kind of boring because that's been Apple's MO when it's come to Pro phones over the last several years. The 15 ones are also, I think, getting some disappointment. I think The Verge had a good bit where they broke down all the colors and what they were calling them instead. Most of which were very uncomplimentary. Yeah, there we go. Yup, it's black, barely blue, almost green, maybe yellow, and millennial pink.
Millennial pink.
Yeah, I mean, they're fine. I love the iMac colors so much, and I wish Apple would bring that same sensibility to the phones, because it really is vibrant and it has certainly an aspect of the classic iMac. Original iMac, sort of fruit flavors. But apparently Apple has decided the phones are serious business and we can only have muted colors. So especially as someone who gets a Pro phone year after year, I am also annoyed that those phones don't have a little bit more vibrancy to them as well. I ordered a blue titanium phone for myself because it seemed like the most interesting of the titanium colors, but even that was not particularly eye-catching. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. I also
ordered the blue titanium because I felt like it was the only one that was going to stick out.
The best of the bad options, basically. Yeah. I would say bad. Boring.
Best
of the boring options.
Best of the boring options. Ultimately it's going into a case for me. Although I've heard
I'm thinking about going caseless this year, Micah. I don't know. I'm a little worried though.
Stuff about that. There is actually, speaking of, that's another news article. Dr. Dring over at leancrew.com was seeing many people talking about the lightness of the phone, and basically did some ridiculous math to talk about something called the moment of inertia, which I feel like needs its own trumpet fanfare or something. But with the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, it is lighter, but not incredibly lighter.
20 grams or so.
Yeah, 20 grams lighter. So 20 paper clips lighter. Mm-hmm. And it is, I guess it depends on the size of your paper clip.
Let me see if I got 20 paper clips in my drawer here. One second.
Here, just throw them up. And that's not so much lighter that the level of reaction that people have had about the lightness of the phone necessarily lined up. And so Dr. Dring was kind of thinking about it and said, okay, look, it's the frame of the phone that has changed to titanium from steel. The inside of it is still aluminum. Let's think about what could be going on here. Well, there's something called the moment of inertia. Mass, of course, is the main consideration. But the moment of inertia has to do with kind of your manipulation of the device as you are holding in your hand and moving it around. And because the frame is lighter than the current frame, we might be more sensitive to the change in the moment of inertia. So Dr. Dring did the math and determined that the reduction, and I'm just quoting, the reduction in the moment of inertia about the x-axis is 14 to 15%. So the reduction is 14 to 15% over the iPhone 14 Pro. And so outside of that mass reduction, it makes it easier to turn the iPhone 15 Pro. And that could be why we feel that difference. And I guess when you think about it, yeah, I think about like if you have a little gyroscope in your hands and you get it going and you try to move your hand back and forth, you feel that pressure of the gyroscope kind of trying to correct itself. Whereas if you're just kind of holding that little device in your hand and it's not doing its gyroscope thing, you don't necessarily like it doesn't feel like it weighs as much, so to speak. So there's something to be said for the moment of inertia.
I've been busy trying to clip 20 paper clips together.
Check that out. We've got a chain of 20 paper clips.
I didn't get a ton of time. I've got 19 paper clips. I think it's 19 grams. I've got 19 paper clips here.
There you go.
I'm trying to chain them all together.
Difference.
It's actually slower than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
so
when
I'll
you
hold
look
my
at that,
iPhone 14 in one hand and I'll hold 19 paper clips in the other hand and be okay, all right, yeah. That's about the difference there. If I can calculate the difference between these two hands, that's an iPhone 15 Pro.
There you go. And suddenly one will appear in your hand. No. Are you going to be getting yours on day one?
I'm not. I'm traveling this week. So I am picking mine up at an Apple store next Sunday, which will be the first time I've picked one up in a store for a long time. I usually get them delivered. So, and there have been some back and forth. I was talking to some people on social media about, I guess sometimes you can get like the trade-in. Sometimes they do it in store and sometimes they give you a box and send it in. Like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, I didn't get that option when I was doing it, but I always like the ability to send it in because like I get a couple, it's leisurely, right? I can take my time doing that transfer and make sure you've got everything that you, otherwise just being like, I'd be super tense in the store. Like I'm going to walk out of here without this phone. So like all my stuff better have made it. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's my first time doing an in-store pickup in quite a few years. But yeah, it was the most effective way to do that while I was out of town.
I think I ended up doing that with an Apple Watch. When I first got the Apple Watch, I did not get the Ultra. I ended up switching to the Ultra. And so I remember going to the Apple store and it was super fast. And
yeah, I did that with my watch last year because I broke my old watch and I was traveling. I was up in Seattle. And so I like literally went to a store. Fortunately, our flight was delayed. And so we went to an Apple store and I swapped out for a brand new watch. And they're like, oh, you want to keep the old one? I'm like, it's got a cracked screen and I'm flying home. Nope.
No, thanks. That can stay.
I'm good.
Then the last thing I'll mention, I have to say I'm a little embarrassed. I did not know about this because I never have my phone off of silent, except by accident. So I had no idea that there was a new sound in iOS 17 for notifications. Have you heard the new notification sound?
I have. I'm actually delighted by it because I believe it's called Rebound, which is also the name of another podcast that I host. Yeah. I'm sure Apple named it after us because they're big fans of the Rebound podcast, which you can go to reboundcast.com. But yes, I'm glad to see they have it. But I'm like you, Mikah. I do not have my phones off. In fact, I just went to check and my text tones are they're just straight up disabled. Like in addition to, having my phone on mute, I have none set to text tone because I don't want even the accidental like ping all the time.
Let me see if I can get it to.
Ooh.
Oh, wait, here. This is the sound again.
Bloop. Bloop. It sounds like a little drop of water.
Yeah. And so this is the sound for this is the sound that Jack made. No, this is the sound that you will hear when an app doesn't have like a custom notification. It's basically just the default notification sound. And people have noticed that it is quieter than the sound that we had in the past, which was the tritone sound. And people are upset. People are upset that they are unable to change that sound for all notifications. This is the thing. So the face you're making right now is the face that
good. You're going to get there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they're talking about this, they're specifically talking about how apps that don't have their own notification sound will default to a sound. And in the past, they defaulted to tritone. So now they're defaulting to that new sound. It's a little bit quieter and they're a little upset by that. You can, of course, change your ringtone to this, your text tone to this, or away from this,
back to tritone.
Yeah, back to tritone. It's stored for folks who are if they want to go and get their text tone back to tritone, you simply need to go into settings, sounds and haptics. And let's say we're doing our text tone, tap on text tone, and then under the sounds, choose classic, scroll all the way down, and then choose tritone, and then you'll have it. But yes, for apps that haven't added to their own little app package, their own custom sounds, this is the new sound, and people are feeling like they're missing it because it's quieter. And so folks are upset about it.
The thing I laugh about every time I go into ringtones and text tones is the reminder that there is still a tone store.
Yes, right. It's like, oh, wait,
it takes you to what app is this? I think it's the iTunes Store app. And ringtones are like all the way at the bottom. This is hilarious. Yeah, there is still a ringtone store. Weird. But yeah, it's surprising that there isn't a way to change the sort of default tone. Like that does surprise me a little bit, given that like if there's so many things that are going to make that noise, why would you not have the ability to control it? But
yeah,
that's Apple for you.
That is where people who are using Android. Sorry, now I'm getting lost in sounds. The people who are using Android are going, that's why we love Android, because we can change the sound for every single app if we want to.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. I wish there was an easier way to make custom tones. I don't think there's still not an easy way to. There used to be, didn't there? Like way back, couldn't you like make stuff and you could save stuff as ringtones? I just don't know how I don't think you can do that anymore.
Yeah, it's not easy. On the phone, no, you can do custom haptics on the phone, which is fun.
Yeah,
but the ringtones, that you have to use GarageBand, and it ends up being a whole thing.
It's kind of a mess. Yeah.
And then, that's actually the end of the news there. I want to go ahead and move on to feedback and questions. First and foremost, we've got Todd, who has written in and said, thanks for all the great tips on preparing for the new iPhone. I watched the Apple presentation and they touted the increased durability or whatever it was of the screen glass on the new iPhones. One thing I did not see on the episode is a need for a screen protector or not. Are screen protectors still needed on these new iPhones? So Todd, here's what I'll say. I haven't felt that screen protectors are needed since I've owned an iPhone, which goes all the way back to the 4S, I think. I was not on the 3GS original iPhone, but after that, Apple forever has done a cool thing with their screens when most actually smartphone manufacturers these days do this. They put an oleophobic coating on the screen. Oleophobic means afraid of oil. Well, not exactly. It means that it repels oil. It does not like oil. And so it makes it so that all your little juicy fingerprints.
Not the adjective I would have used.
Oily, my gosh.
Oily fingerprints, greasy fingerprints.
Excuse me. Juicy fingerprints was never mind. Anyway, your fingerprints are easy to wipe off of your phone just by simply wiping kind of the surface of the phone. So a lot of screen protectors don't have a very good oleophobic coating, which makes for a grimy, gross experience. Also, it can reduce the sensitivity of the phone's touch and a number of other reasons. Depending on who puts on the display or puts on the screen protector and how it's put on, you might end up with bubbles or dust underneath. I don't like screen protectors. I do believe in them because they do exist, but I do not encourage their use unless you are a person who breaks your phone like more. If every time you've owned an iPhone, you've broken the screen, that's where I recommend having a screen protector, because it is a it's often a chance for you to forego having your screen being broken, which, depending on if you're using AppleCare or not, may cost an arm and a leg. And even with AppleCare, still costs a lot of money, whereas a screen protector on its own does not cost as much to replace. So your first question being, is there a need for a screen protector or not? Arguably, depending on your own kind of behavior and chance of breaking the screen, I don't think a screen protector is necessary. But I'm curious, Dan, your take on this, if it's different from mine, if you know people that use screen protectors and if they like them.
I do know some people who use screen protectors. I tend to agree with you. I actually don't think they're very helpful. And I think they cause more problems than they solve. I'm not even clear how much they protect your screen from, actually dropping or breaking it, as opposed to things like scratches. So I'm always a little bit more wary of actually putting those on. I've only ever broken one phone. It wasn't my phone, which is the worst / best way to do it. I tend not to really go in for them, and I think that they aren't really necessary. As mentioned, like Apple has worked on having glass that's very durable. The ceramic shield, which is in the latest generation of iPhones, is supposed to be tougher and more resilient. So I think that does help. And I will add, this is one thing that's getting talked about in the reviews of the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro. Last year, I believe it was the iPhone 14 was noted as having a particularly repairable glass back, especially, but also I think that in general being one of the most repairable iPhones Apple's built. And it seems like both the 15 and 15 Pro are built along those lines. So it makes it easier to replace some of these parts should they end up broken, especially if you have AppleCare. So I think if you want to invest in something, potentially invest in AppleCare. That might get you more mileage for your money.
Indeed. So yeah, there you go. Your screen protector is AppleCare. Michael has written in and asks, how does iOS negotiate between Wi-Fi and cellular? Recently, I was in a hotel where the Wi-Fi signal on my iPad was weak, but my AT&T cellular signal was also weak. I tried turning each one off in turn, and that didn't seem to help. In that situation, should I just leave them both on and let iOS decide, or is there something else to try? So Michael, I recommend, and it's enabled by default, it's called Wi-Fi Assist. And Wi-Fi Assist is a feature that's been around since iOS 9 that basically when your Wi-Fi connection is not great, iOS and iPadOS will look at the cellular connection that you have, and if it is better than the Wi-Fi connection that you have, it will switch over to that cellular connection. So it will choose which of the two is the best option for that device at that time and make use of that. Now, if you haven't gone in and disabled it, this is just going to be turned on by default. This is a feature, though, that is in settings, cellular, mobile data, and then you scroll down and find the slider for Wi-Fi Assist. And that is where you will find that setting. So if you have that turned on, you're good to go. iOS and iPadOS are just going to automatically go, this one's better right now, this one's worse, I'll stick with this one, or I'll move over to cellular, as opposed to you having to manage that on your own. The last question comes from Doug. Doug writes in, I would imagine your listeners are more bleeding edge when it comes to all things iOS, and that is why they listen to the show. Not exactly true. We get people who are new to iPhone. We get people who are not like steeped in technology, know everything there is to know about it, are just kind of average users. And then we also get some nerds as well. It says, I have my current iPhone 14 Pro Max enrolled in the iOS 17 beta program. I also plan to upgrade to an iPhone 15 Pro Max next week. Could you walk through the steps of transferring iPhones when the current one is running the iOS 17 beta? I would hope many of your listeners might benefit from this. So we actually got this question over the weekend on Ask the Tech Guys, and it is a really good question. If you have the GM, the Golden Master, as it's called.
I think they switched to RC, actually.
Yes, that's right. It's release candidate to get away from the term master, which is great. So thank you. RC, the release candidate for iOS, then you have what is essentially the release version of iOS. When you go through, if you do the transfer process to go from one phone to the other, you'll be asked during the process if you want to remain in the beta or not. I like to do this, though. I like to first make sure that the phone that I have, this iPhone 14 Pro Max, is on the RC, the release candidate. And then I go into General, I go into Software Update, and I turn off beta updates. Then I force restart my phone. Volume up, volume down, hold the side button until the Apple logo appears. At that point, it is almost as if the phone is running the release version of iOS 17. And then whenever you're doing the transfer process, it's not looking at the fact that you have betas enabled and asking if you want to kind of remain on the beta. If for some reason, which I don't see this happening, Apple between now and Friday released a 17.1 or 17.01 beta, and you had that beta switch still turned on, then you're not in a great place. But if you just have the release candidate and you go from there, then you're in a great place. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a whole process of.
It's smoother now than it used to be. I believe it will prompt you when you try to do like setup, the transfer, it'll notice you're on a older version and will try to update the software on the new phone to match the old phone first, but it is still an extra step because you got to wait for the whole thing to download and install and all of that. So I agree with your methodology. I think that's the better way to do it, but it is not as, it used to be a way bigger pain back when there wasn't just a switch in the software update to like, oh, beta's on or off, basically. You had to do profiles and provisioning and all that stuff. So it's not the end of the world if you're still on the beta, but I agree with Mikah that it's best to try and get on the release candidate and turn off beta updates. It'll just make your life easier.
Yeah, thank goodness they did that. The first thing that had to go off was the tvOS beta, because the TV is used not just by me, who's okay with things going wrong, but also the other person in this household. And I meant to turn it off and forgot. And so it got enrolled in the 17, kept going. And so, finally I installed the release candidate and turned that off immediately. So now there aren't a bunch of bugs making the TV harder to use. So yes, get on the release candidate, and then it should be an easy process from there. All right, we've got app caps coming up next, but I do want to take a quick break to tell you about our third and final sponsor of this episode. It's Cashfly, who are literally bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Cashfly is celebrating TCP Anycast's 20th anniversary. Congratulations, Cashfly. Since 1999, Cashfly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. See, Cashfly pioneered the use of TCP Anycast in 2002, an innovation that CDNs continue to build upon to this day. With more than 3,500 clients in more than 80 countries, organizations consistently choose Cashfly for scalability, reliability, and unrivaled performance. Cashfly's smart image optimization is a fast and secure image processing service that allows you to transform and optimize your images on the fly. Large, uncompressed images can significantly slow down your website, and of course that's going to result in poor user experience and lower search engine rankings. So get ready to deliver personalized and engaging visual content effortlessly. With Cashfly, you will get ultra-low latency video streaming that will deliver video to more than 1 million concurrent users. You'll get lightning-fast gaming, which will deliver downloads faster with zero lag, glitches, or outages. Mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device. Is the only CDN built for throughput. It delivers rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs, plus flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need it and discounts for fixed terms once you're happy. So design your own contract when you switch to Cashfly. Join Cashfly, the world's fastest CDN. For a limited time, Cashfly is offering a free 5 terabyte tier plan. For other plans, learn how you can get your first month free at Cashfly.com. That's Cachefly.com. Cashfly.com. Thank you, Cashfly, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, we are back from the break, and that means it's time to head into App Caps. This, of course, is the part of the show where we place caps atop our heads to honor our app and or gadget picks of the week. These are the apps and gadgets we are using now or have used at some time that we want to share with all of you. And in order to enjoy and celebrate these apps or gadgets, we put things on our heads or around our heads, over our heads, somewhere in this general vicinity. Dan, Moren, first tell us about the nearly trademarked app or cap atop your head, and then tell us about your app pick of the week.
Yeah, I realize I don't think I've ever worn this hat on this show. This is the hat I usually wear. This is my Red Sox hat, my Boston Red Sox hat. It is a hat of Theseus, I like to say, because I have worn a Boston Red Sox hat for many years. But the dirty secret is it's been several different hats because they wear out.
Are you telling me that it didn't go to a farm to be happy and live its life for the rest?
They're all in a display case in my room. What I need is the hat of Dorian Gray, where the hat in the attic gets rattier and rattier as the hat on my head stays okay. No, I love that. Honestly, to be frank for a moment, I started wearing a baseball cap a lot more when I was in my 20s and I started losing my hair. And some of that was a vanity thing, but some of it is also just a practicality. Like, it's a lot easier to get sunburned on the top of your head.
Yes, it is.
It really hurts. It's bad. Don't do it.
It's very bad for you.
So I picked a Red Sox hat because in Boston, you can't go wrong wearing a Red Sox hat. And I will say about my Red Sox hat, I have traveled to a lot of different countries over the years, and people always remark upon it in other countries. Mexico, India, Portugal, every place I've been, you will run into Red Sox fans, and I kind of love that aspect of it. It's always a good chat because people will be like, "Oh, you're from Boston," or something, like whether it's someone from there or someone who visited there or whatever. I actually love it. It's a great conversation starter. Wow, I don't know what that was. That was a big noise.
I didn't hear it, so
something weird happened in my office. I don't know. Anyway, what I was going to say was I am picking for my app a brand new app that I was just playing around with the other day called Thwip. You mentioned earlier on the show, Mikah, that you had a soundboard app. Mm-hmm. This is a new soundboard app that just came out. It's free. It's very cool. Obviously, like soundboard app, it's got a iPhone interface and it's got an interactive widget, and you can play around with you can import sounds from your device files app or iCloud or whatever. But the cool thing is that it also has an Apple Watch app. And so you can easily, trigger all the stuff on your Apple Watch. Mikah, I believe this is a favorite of yours. I don't know if you can hear the air horn, but there's an air horn.
Oh, there's an air horn. I bet it's Zoom is probably blocking
Zoom
the
is
air
compensating
horn.
for that.
It's going, hey, no air horns.
The cool part, like one of the cool features that the developer built in is there is the namesake Thwip sound is the sound of Spider-Man's web shooters. So that's built in as an app, but he's also got this mode where you can basically turn your watch around, put it on your hand, and pretend you have a little web slinger.
That's so fun.
Which is hilarious. I love it. And so I thought this was just a really cool app. I love the ability that you can import sounds from anywhere. That's really cool. So if there's it's useful. It's got the built-in, your sad trombone, your air horn, all your sort of standards. But if there's something you legitimately want to make a sound board for, you can just import all this stuff and have it handily available on your phone or your Apple Watch or whatever. That's really cool to me. And I did see, this is probably maybe speaking a little out of turn, but I was actually chatting with Rafa, the developer, and mentioned, what you really need is a lightsaber sound. And he suggested that perhaps such a thing might appear in the future. So keep your eyes peeled for that one there.
That is exciting. And did you mention the price for that?
I believe it is free.
All right.
So
that's exciting.
That's the best kind of app. A free app. Well, I mean, we want to support our developers, obviously.
Yes.
So send some money to the developers' way if you can, or buy their other apps or what have you. But very nice to have that available.
Awesome. Yeah. So that is Thwip. I love that it has an Apple Watch version.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's what really sells
I'm getting more into Apple Watch apps again. I've come back around. I hated them for a long time because they were usually slow and not very useful. But I feel like as the watches have become more powerful, the Apple Watch apps have gotten good again. So I'm here for it.
Go Apple Watch. So my first and foremost, the cap I'm wearing on top of my head is a beret. It is, I believe, it was either purchased in France or it was sent from France. So it's a real French beret. And I'm sure that any French person who heard me say beret that way was like, oh, how terrible. That was nowhere near how it was supposed to sound. But anyway, it's just a simple black beret on my head. Although I didn't, yeah, there we go. I had the little nubbin thing covered up, but now it's not. Yes. So they didn't know it was a beret until I fixed that. Right. The app that I want to talk about, it is mind-boggling to me that this app is available for free in the App Store. I know the folks over at Reincubate is technically the name of the company. Because of the app that I use to do this show when I do it from home. I'm currently using an iPhone camera that is connected via USB to my Mac, and that is the webcam that I use for almost everything that I do. And that is all thanks to an application called Camo that is able to use the iPhone as a webcam in a really clever way. It does a great job. And I've used this for a long time. Back when I recorded Smart Tech Today, a show that we had on the network, it was Matthew Castanelli who introduced me to this app. And at the time I said, I wonder what kind of creepy stuff they're doing in the background to make this possible. Like, I'm kind of worried about the privacy implications of this, how this system might not be doing what I would expect it to. And the folks at Reincubate watched the show. They reached out and they said, hey, they detailed basically that it is not, they're using what is built into the iPhone and like what Apple has blessed as part of the process. And they just do it in a way that strips away any of the extra stuff so that it is as pure and close to pulling directly from the camera as possible. After I heard about that, heard from them and got that detailed understanding, I've been a fan ever since. They have now released a really cool program for the iPad called Camo Studio for iPad. And Camo Studio for iPad is an incredibly powerful application that lets you basically stream from your iPad. It will let you stream apps from your iPad, use an external camera connected via USB to your iPad as a camera source, use the built-in cameras for your iPad. And depending on if you have an M1 or M2 or a iPad with an M1 or M2 chip, there's an iPad with an M2 chip now. It will be able to be incredibly performant. So with this iPad Pro that I have here, I'm able to have two different cameras set up right now. So it's important to understand that what you're seeing, the blue, me and the blue, that is something that I'm doing outside of this. So just look at this thing in the background. That is the app. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that I have the camera that is the front-facing ultra-wide camera from the iPad. The camera in the background is actually the back-facing camera that I just currently have covered because otherwise you would just see my dusty desk. And so it would normally display something that's in the background, but you can set it so that the secondary camera or that's actually the secondary camera, that the primary camera is instead an external video source. So again, this could be a webcam or some other like HDMI capture device that's connected or an app on this iPad. So in this case, what we would do is we would start streaming or recording. So streaming to Twitch, streaming to some other source, or recording to disk. And then we would swipe down from Control Center, go down into the recording mode, choose Camo Studio as the source, start the broadcast, and then switch to the app. And then you would see on your stream that in this frame that I've set up would be the app that I'm playing around in. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you would see this front-facing camera there. So it will let you kind of do that multitasking, streaming, recording. It has options for creating custom stream panels, so you can kind of set up your own overlays. People who are familiar with streaming will be familiar with kind of how that works. So you could set up a plug-in overlay that responds whenever people follow you on your channel, that kind of thing. You can set up different scenes. So if you want to switch to a view that just has the main camera, or in this case, I would switch it so that the primary camera is the front ultra wide camera. So there's that view. If I wanted to change scenes, I can hit the plus button and choose a new scene that is entirely brand new from the web, which again will do like an overlay from the web from an image. So I can have a PNG that kind of gets dropped on the top. Or if you create scenes in Camo for the Mac, you can import them into Camo on the iPad. This again is ridiculously, it's a full featured streaming platform on the iPad. I don't even know how they're doing this. It's so cool. The destinations you can stream to are YouTube, Twitch, Trovo, or a custom, RTMP stream. Yeah. And then you can also, save it to a local location if you're just doing recording. And of course, as is the way of Camo Studio and Reincubate, they'll continue to add features and improvements over time. But the fact that this is launched and it's available for free, the company plans to keep it free, and that you can do all of this streaming right from that app on your iPad, showing some of the power that the iPad has, I think is pretty cool. And I think it's going to give people the opportunity to, maybe they don't have to bring so much of a kit when they're going places and they want to stream content or games or what have you. So yeah, that's Camo Studio for iPad, now launched in the App Store.
Incredible. I was playing around with it a little bit yesterday as well, and I agree with you 100%. Like, amazing that power, not only that power is available, but that they are distributing that app for free. It is incredibly good. Like, I was just messing around with all these different things. You and I have done some streaming stuff in the past for Total Party Kill over at the Incomparable for our D&D game. And, while this isn't necessarily going to work for something like that because of the limitations that Apple has placed on the iPadOS, I have no feeling that Camo couldn't make something like that work if they wanted to, at least on like the Mac or something like that. But it's still incredible, like the amount of power available on iPadOS. And I think it's just a great opportunity of showing off that the iPad really is an incredibly capable device. So super cool.
Yes, it's a true pro app, available for free. What? That's why anyone who has a Mac should consider getting Camo for the Mac to help support these incredible developers. One of the things I really like about what they do is that they have teams that are made for specific types of operating systems. They don't just have one, the developers that are working on the Mac app are building for the Mac, and the developers that are working on the Windows app are building for Windows, Android for Android, iOS for iOS. It's not a global library where you end up having to kind of make sacrifices. No, they build these specific to the platforms. And I think that's one of the cool things about them. I'm hoping to have the CEO of the company on iOS Today soon to talk about Camo Studio for iPad, just to get more insight into, its use and everything. So you'll be able to be on the lookout for that at some point in the future. Folks, that does bring us to the end of this episode of iOS Today. If you have questions, if you have feedback, if you have Shortcuts Corner requests, send those to iOStoday@twit.tv, iOStoday@twit.tv. We do record this show live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, 1600 UTC. You go to twit.tv/live to watch the show live across various streaming platforms. But the best way to get the show is subscribing to it, because that way it just ends up in your lap when it's ready at twit.tv/iOS. When you head there, you can subscribe to audio or subscribe to video, and you will get the show as soon as it's available. And this is for almost any podcast application or service: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We give you a plain old RSS feed if you'd like that, so that you can use whatever system you want to use to get the show. If you would like to get all of our shows ad-free, just the content and all of the goodies that come along with that, consider joining Club Twit at twit.tv/Club Twit. When you join the club, starting at $7 a month or $84 a year, you will gain access, as I mentioned, to every single Twitch show with no ads. You'll also gain access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, plus special Club Twit events that get published in that feed. So when you join, you're going to get access to a cool back catalog of stuff that you can go back and listen to or watch, and access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members, and also many of us here at Twit. As Leo puts it, it is the best social media network on the internet. It's so much fun to hang out with the Club Twit members there. I say starting at, not because it's a tiered subscription where more money gets you more, but because folks have said, hey, you keep adding more to the club, we'd like to be able to give you more. So it starts at $7. You can add more if you'd like to, but regardless of whether you pay the $7 or you pay more, you're getting the same things, which is awesome. You will also gain access to some Club Twit exclusive shows. Yes, shows that only exist for you club members. There is the Untitled Linux Show, which is, as you probably guessed, a show all about Linux. There's Hands on Windows, which is a short format show that covers Windows tips and tricks. There's Hands on Mac, which is my show for Apple tips and tricks, not just the Mac, but all sorts of Apple gizmos and gadgets, as well as Home Theater Geeks from Scott Wilkinson, where you can get home theater tips, product reviews, feature reviews, all explanations. It's a great show. Plus a new show from Jason Howell called AI Inside, which you can get as part of your Club Twit membership. So consider joining the club. Again, twit.tv/Club Twit, $7 a month, $84 a year. We'd love to have you. Dan Moren, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work that you're doing, where should they go to do so?
Well, for everything about Apple, you can go check out sixcolors.com. I also host a couple tech podcasts, including Clockwise every Wednesday with Mikah Sargent, as well as The Rebound, which you can find at reboundcast.com. And I'm also a novelist. My latest book is All Souls Lost, which is a supernatural detective thriller with the spooky goings on at a big tech company. So something that you folks might be interested in. Comes out October 17th. You can pre-order it now. For information about that and all my other books, go to dmoren.com.
I cannot wait for that book. I'm so excited. Folks, you can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Dan Moren, thank you for being here this week. Folks out there listening, thank you for joining us. And we will be back next week. It should be our iPhone 15 review episode. Very exciting. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, but your game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/Club Twit and sign up. Hope to see you there.